He said, you know what? You can't do what I do. He said, I can do what you do, but you can't do what I do. See, I can get on the radio, I can sit in front of a live audience, and I can have an intelligent conversation. He said, but you can't do what I do. You can't put on the pads and go be and play against the best in the world. He says, as a matter of fact, the last time that you put on pads was when your mom took you trick-or-treating. NFL Hall of Famer Micheal Strahan was on a radio show one time. And while on the show, the guy who was the host of the show, he ended up humiliating Strahan while on the air. And Strahan was so embarrassed, he said, I'll never, ever, ever be on that guy's show again. But as fate would have it, Strahan and the shock jock ended up meeting up on another show. And Strahan let him have it very matter-of-factly. He said, you know what? You can't do what I do. He said, I can do what you do, but you can't do what I do. See, I can get on the radio, I can sit in front of a live audience, and I can have an intelligent conversation. He said, but you can't do what I do. You can't put on the pads and go be and play against the best in the world. He said, as a matter of fact, the last time that you put on pads was when your mom took you trick-or-treating. So now Strahan uses that mantra. He uses that to free himself up psychologically. See, when people try to put him down, when people try to belittle him, he just whispers to himself, you can't do what I can do. I mean, how liberating is that? When someone tries to make sure that you realize that you're beneath them, that you can free yourself up psychologically by saying, you can't do what I do. I worked with a guy like that. For almost 2 decades, I worked with a guy like that. And this guy was flashy, man. He had custom suits, he had the baller vehicles, he had a Rolex watch, he had the $300 dress shirts. And he made sure to always know that he was on top. He always did that. And I remember being in the room, man, when I got demoted. And it was just 3 guys. It was me, him, and another guy. And as they told me, Marsh, we got to demote you, I remember looking over at him with tears in my eyes. I had no other choice but to take the demotion. And I remember looking at him, and he had this smirk on his face. And after that, I remember sitting in the office as I was trying to relearn a department. Dude, I hadn't done that department in, 17 years. And so even though I had the experience of being in sales for all of these years, dude, I looked like a rookie. I looked absolutely stupid because I didn't remember any of this stuff. And so I had to relearn it all. And so while I was sitting there sinking, man, I mean, emotionally sinking, physically sinking, spiritually sinking. I mean, dude, I was going under. I remember seeing him. He couldn't even make eye contact with me. He wouldn't make eye contact. He wouldn't speak to me. And, it's not like we were best of friends or anything like that, but it would have been nice had he walked up to me after all the smoke cleared. I knew they had to do what they had to do, but for him to just pull me aside and say, look, dude, you're going to get through this. But he never did. He never did. He would walk by and would gloat. And, what made it even worse was he was living a double life, man. See, he portrayed one image, but behind the scenes, he had his dirt. And he just always seemed to barely escape the fires that would ultimately consume him. And you know what freed me up? What freed me up one night was it was late. I had a stack of folders. We were super busy that day. And I never leave until all of my work is done. And he said, look, I'm ready to lock up. It was just him and I. Everybody else had gone home for the night. And he said, look, I'm ready to lock up. And I said, well, go ahead and lock me in because I'm not done. And it was at that point that I told myself, you can't do what I do. See, I can do what you do because I've worked every department in sales, but you can't do what I do. To go what I've gone through, to lose my family, to lose my relationships, to lose my income, and then to lose my title, everything I'd worked for, man, I was back on the bottom rung. I was bottomed out in life. and to know that I was on the way back up. See, that is the thing that freed me up. That is the thing that's going to free you up. When you can sit there and say, you can't do what I do. See, for me to prove who he is or who he's not, it's not my job. And you may work with a lot of people or have to be associated with people just like that, man, who you know the truth. They have everybody fooled but you, man, and you got to sit there and look at that. And you know how aggravating that is? Dude, that's not your job. Free yourself up. Free yourself up by whispering to yourself, dude, you can't do what I do. I can do what you do, but you can't do what I do. You can't be able to rise up out of the ashes. You can't be able to put everything together. Had that guy gone through everything that I'd gone through, his identity was so wrapped up in his social status, in the way that he looked, and in his job title. Had he bottomed out like I did, he would have put a bullet in his mouth, no doubt. Because see, people like that who flaunt those kind of different things, they're very fragile inside. They're actually very weak. And that is the thing, man, that freed me up. That is the thing that made me rise up, would be to whisper to myself on those days, you can't do what I do. See, that's how you have to look at people when you're working around them and they frustrate you. Just say to yourself, you can't do what I do. Because see, people like that, they're playing to a title, and you got to free yourself up because see, you're playing to a whole different level. You can't do what I do. You can't. And that thing, man, that's what's going to make you rise. Because you have to understand this. Always remember this. Those people aren't the ones that are holding you down. You're holding yourself down because you're holding on to them. Free yourself up. Keep rocking. And whisper to yourself at your darkest moments, you can't do what I do. Have an amazing day. Stay in the sales life.